All
Right.
right. And engage.
We are engaging. All right. Picked up there, going on
We're in
Facebook.
the pre-show, I guess. Are we in the
Your
pre-show?
guess is correct. Your guess may be correct.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Hot mic, hot mic.
Hot mic, hot mic. So you said Dune, the new version.
Dune,
You couldn't watch it all in one sitting?
I'm kind of become bad about that with almost anything these days, but no, yeah, 2.5 hours is a long time to go.
Yeah.
But the little bit I did watch of it, I really, really, really enjoyed. So
Mm-hmm.
I get to anticipate watching more of it, which is a fun experience in and of
Nice.
itself.
Yeah. And I'm interesting, like I was saying earlier, because I don't even know if I've seen the original one. I want to say I have, but don't remember anything about it.
Mhm.
Um, because from a storyline point of view, I don't know what percentage of of the original movie they covered in this version, because
Yeah, I
it's
don't know
the
because they're
original
doing
movie was,
multiple.
yeah, they are.
Yeah, they're doing
Because
multiple new
the
movies.
story's not over. I don't know if they only went halfway or three quarters of the way through the
Mhm.
original movie. But my understanding is they didn't do a whole movie, so there's going to be a sequel that will
Mhm.
continue the original movie. So it's kind of
Got it.
like, well, how much additional story building or what did they include or add to kind of extend out the time so much?
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I have no idea, but
Me
whatever they're
neither.
doing, I'm liking it. I don't
Very good.
mind
Yeah.
that it's slower. I guess I just like these. A friend of mine described it as Star Wars for adults, which I still don't quite understand, although I think that's a funny sentence. I'm like, wait a minute, does that mean I'm a kid because I love Star Wars in the universe?
You have to have yeah, I don't think a
Mhm.
kid would enjoy Dune too much. The average kid. I don't think the
Mhm.
average
Yeah, I
kid
think
would
that was
enjoy
more
Dune too
like what he
much.
meant by it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it is a lot like Star Wars, and I enjoy that a lot. It's very
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. I The new season of Narcos Mexico came out on Netflix last week.
Mm.
So I'm a big Narcos fan, so I've been watching that.
I've never seen it.
Oh, it's such a good show.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like shows, maybe TV, movies, whatever, that are based on true events. It doesn't need to be a documentary,
Hmm.
but where it's kind of based on it, I always find it interesting. So,
Based on real events.
based on, although the
Yeah,
characters
I
you
don't.
see and the locations have been fictionalized to make it more exciting.
Are you into like true crime dramas and all that stuff that's gotten super
Some of them,
popular?
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
not. Yeah, depends. I want like depends if it's done right. Yes, I'm not into like Hollywood just like shows. Or if it's too documentary type, then I can get a little disconnected. But
Interesting.
let's
It's all about how you define the success of the show for yourself.
oh, there you go. Very nice lead in. Nice lead in. Nice lead in. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on where
Good
you're at in the
night.
world. It's one of the great things about doing this type of stuff on the internet is that people from all over the world can watch it. It is morning here. It's 10:15 on the West Coast. It's a little wet outside. I don't know if you can tell through the wall, but it is a little wet outside. Good morning, everybody. My name is Ryan. And of course, Will Cordingly is in the house. Good morning, Will.
Good morning, Ryan. Good morning, good afternoon, good night to everyone out in Cyberland. Good to have you here with us.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
what are we going to do today? I guess other than talk about the weather, which is,
It's
what
been
if
quite
it's,
successful.
yeah, well, for
I
people who
don't
don't know,
I don't think we've
it,
had this
we,
much rain this early in the season in I couldn't even tell you when. Couldn't even tell you when. I do
I
know
couldn't either.
it is making my hair grow out, so you know the rain is good. The rain
Yeah,
is good. The more it
that's
grows, though,
good.
the more gray I notice because there's just more of it. You know, it's like
Yeah, well,
if you shaved your beard, you wouldn't know that you had any gray.
it's true. I don't mind it so much. I did for a while, and then I'm like,
Did
well,
you?
I'm just gonna have to go with this because I'm not gonna dye my beard.
Yeah.
That'd be odd. And at our ages, just between us, you can be thankful for gray hairs instead of no hairs.
For
That's how
sure.
I look at it,
For
actually.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of success to being had in having gray hairs, and there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge and all that type of fun stuff that comes with it. We keep on saying
Mhm.
success because we are going to be talking about success. We want to pivot, we want to transition. We're going to turn left where other people turn right and go down the road of success. So
There you go. I
there you
like
go.
that. There you go. Choices are to be had about it. Very cool.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk a bit about how you, meaning the viewer or listener, defines success and why that's so critically important, to have a framework about and a way of thinking about and put some attention on instead of just accepting what the markers of success have been pushed onto you and it may be accepted in your system.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I
among
would
other
say
things.
that there is also, I see this play out in shows or movies sometimes where in order to be successful, you just have to lower your barrier of entry. So if you're willing to compromise to be successful, that's another option also. It may not be the ideal option. So I think for today's show, we wanted to talk about how you define success for yourself is really important because if you don't have any markers or if you don't have a way of being able to determine, identify, um, notice what it feels like when you're successful, then you may
Mhm.
never truly be successful because you haven't really defined it. And money is one of those things. I think it's an easy example where people will say, okay, I want more money. And then you ask them to define, okay, well, how much more money would you like to have? Is it a penny? Because that's more.
Mhm.
And you know, as we know, the mind is the parts of the mind that really make the decisions and how we move towards what we want or shy away from what we don't want. They will define more as more. I can give you a penny, boom, you've got more. It says, okay, success. So that's where we really need to define it. Is it
Mhm.
$100,000 a year, 250,000, you know, million, 5 million? And at what point
Yeah.
does it get uncomfortable? Because having too much of a good thing can get uncomfortable in the system also. So defining that success is really important.
Yeah, and defining it for yourself. Money is a good example of this other thing that comes to mind about this. If you don't define success for yourself, you've just kind of been told making more
Right.
money is more success. And then you spend all of this time and energy and life force pursuing it, and you get there. Let's say if you're fortunate enough to have that experience, and then you're unfortunate enough to have the next experience, which is you achieve something that you thought you wanted that would give you things you thought it would bring, and then it you turns out you never really wanted it, and it didn't give you what you thought it would give you
Right.
because you hadn't defined the why you wanted the things that you call successful and important in your life for yourself uniquely.
Right. And it's that day the day, this is what I want, that I think that you're kind of alluding to, where it's pre-programmed, it's been identified by other people. This is what success is. In some cultures, it might be you have to be a doctor or a lawyer, or in certain families, even
Mm-hmm.
success is defined as following the tradition of the family. If you're a lumberjack, if your family's got a long line of lumberjacks, then success may be you becoming a lumberjacker also.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that, then that ties into belonging and some other things, but it's really being able to identify what is really, what is it really that you want, and how do you define success for yourself? And for some people, that could be a really tough question to answer, especially if you have a compromised right to need or exist, because to be able to identify what it is to have something that you want could be a little dangerous or sketchy in your system. So if you
Hmm.
identify that way, if you find that it is difficult, or it's even difficult to imagine wanting something specific, it's like, I'm flexible. It's okay. Whatever my partner wants is what I want in life. Maybe kind of an indication that you've got a compromised right to exist or want or need. And
Hmm.
that plays into it also, because then you don't have a true understanding of what is it that you want.
Yeah, and it's muddied by the fact that kind of at a cellular level, in one way or another, you don't believe that you could have it. So
Right.
you can have it through someone else's choices, or you can never have it by choosing on some level to not know what it is that you want to attain. There's just a lot of ways it could get fixed up and get
Right.
problematic. And when you say for the civilians out there, Ryan, when you talk about compromise right to exist or need or any of these things, he's referring to a methodology or I don't even know what you'd call it, a way of orienting
Defining.
around
Yeah.
defining, yeah, orienting around the way things work for humans and psyches that comes from a tradition from Wilhelm Reich, which is he's a descendant of Freud and kind of did his own way of came up with his own system of body work and also like how the body relates to our psychology at an organismic level.
Hmm.
Maybe we'll talk about it one day. It's kind of technical, it's kind of funky, but
But it's kind of cool,
it
in the
it's
sense that when you
yeah.
become aware of these things, then it's almost, because we talk about invisible beliefs, or um, the things that stop you that you don't know are stopping you. You're just not aware that there's barriers.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the way, oh, this is just the way life has always been. And as you start to discover that there's other things at play, if you will, then you
Uh-huh.
can start to pay attention to them. And with attention comes awareness, and with awareness becomes choice. And ultimately, what is it that you would like is part of that choice thing. And so if you don't know if that some of your choices are being limited just through lack of awareness, has nothing to do with intelligence or anything, it's just the way the brain
Yeah.
works. um, I think it's, at least it's been my experience, it's been really nice to go, oh, okay, so there's other things at play. When I see them playing out in life, I need to kind of pay a little bit more attention to that so that I can start moving towards what it is that I want.
Yeah.
But it is deep.
And and that's why we're talking about what we're talking about today, because the first step in all of that
Right.
that you're talking about, that process, which is kind of the overarching way things go for people in creating the lives that they want, it starts with knowing exactly what you want.
Right.
And that can be a really, really, really challenging endeavor for some people. And for
Mm-hmm.
other people, like, what do you mean that's challenging? You know, it can also happen like that for people,
Right. Sure. Sure.
except for the booby trap of, and this can happen to anyone, that booby trap of if you don't know why you want something, so to speak, right,
Right.
then we are easily fooled by ourselves around these things as well. So it
Right.
can get tricky.
Yeah.
But the way I think about it is, if you kind of think about the Matrix, the first one, when Neo kind of pops out and begins his training, there's that just white room where they can put
Mm-hmm.
in anything in the program. When people define what they want in their lives, for me, it lands a bit like that experience. Like
Mm.
everyone's in their own white room and then they choose what they want. and that can be kind of close or it can be kind of far away. And then the metaphorical barriers inside of ourselves arise in that white room too, whether it's these huge mountains, maybe there's 10 mountains to climb before you get to what you want. Maybe there's
Right.
a bunch of ninjas you have to fight, like, maybe there's a bunch of puzzles and trapdoors and kind of things you have to surmount.
Right.
All this is metaphorical speaking for saying there's barriers inside of ourselves to what we want, but we never really know what they are, or at least we don't get the chance to kind of ferret them out without first defining what we want exactly.
Yeah.
And then our systems are nice enough to reveal the path to that inside of ourselves, and that path can be, you know kind of fraud and kind of difficult, or it could be kind of straightforward, just depending
Right.
on the person and the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting the way the mind works as it was kind of presented to us is looking at it as a map. And so if you did not have a map of the world, if that wasn't available to you because of technology or whatever it was, there was a time when people lived without knowing what existed beyond a 7 days ride, as an example, or there were probably people that never left their village because it wasn't safe to do so, and they were needed in the village.
Mhm.
They never had an understanding of what was available out there. So if you kind of take that pretext of a map, and how is it that you define your map of the world? What does that map look like? Who's in it? Where do you stand in it? And how expansive is that map? And when identifying what it is that you want, and even think that you want, because maybe you're not in a place to fully understand what it is that you want, but it's something I would like to reach for, something I would like to strive for, is then kind of visualize in your mind, where does that land on the map? And if you've got this invisible border, if you will, where things maybe get a little faint and it doesn't have as much clarity as it does around city center, as an example, if you want something outside of the map, then that's kind of where I think, Will, you were talking about, you start bumping up against certain things that
Mhm.
the mind is designed to keep you in that safe, comfortable city center, if you will, that part of the map that's clearly defined, that you
Fine.
fully feel comfortable within. And
Mhm.
as you get on the bus, as you take a bike, as you start walking, as you drive your car, however you want to get there. Some people like taking jet planes and just but as you get to that outer fringe of your map, that's when things start getting a little unsafe for the mind, because it doesn't know what to expect. And because it wants to protect you,
Mhm.
it's going to say, hold it, this is a little scary. We should probably, let's just go back home. It's safer there. And
Mhm.
let's not explore and expand and do those types of things. And so those are obstacles that are going to show up in all kinds of different ways for everybody out there. And
Mhm.
some of them show up as literal obstacles. And
Yep.
a buddy of ours, Steve um, Nopleton, talks about this metaphor where if you're out for a walk in the woods and there's a big rock, sometimes you don't have to beat on the rock and try and get through it, because so many people, they say, this is what I want, and then they have to grind, they have to work hard, they've got to
Mhm.
whatever it is, they got to expend enormous amounts of energy and pain and suffering in order to get what they want. And instead of doing that, take a couple of steps back, and just notice that you could go around the rock to the left or the right, and that a lot
Yeah,
of times there are
completely.
other choices that will get you where you want to go.
Yeah. And it doesn't help that a lot of people who beat down the huge rock then go on to write books and make speeches about how they grinded it out
They
for so
right.
long and it paid
Yes.
off for them. And
Right.
then those stories are usually told in very compelling ways, so it
Correct. Yes.
grows
And
that
we
narrative
love
a
an
bit.
underdog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. But you got to make sure you want to be on the other side of that thing if you're going to put all that time and effort into it. I think that's why it's so
Right.
important that you don't set yourself up for being in a weird place, for getting to some place and not actually enjoying the fruits of your labor, the fruits of your creation, what
Hmm.
you've like put forth into the world in your own life. It's tricky. How are we going to get people, how are we going to help people out figure this out quickly here?
Yeah. I
Let's
don't
think.
even know if it has to be quickly per se, because we're going to be
Hmm.
talking about success in different ways over the next few weeks. Um,
Hmm.
we've got a number of topic ideas that we want to share that all kind of come back to the basics. And like you said early on, we started with this specific topic as far as being able to start identifying what success means for you, because it's
Hmm.
kind of the foundation. It's if you don't know what it is that you want, then it's really hard to move towards what it is that you want. And not knowing what you want is okay. It's just a matter of, okay, how can I put some attention on it so
Hmm.
that as I'm viewing the world and I'm making decisions and I'm interacting with people, are these decisions, are these people, are these opportunities in alignment with where I think I want to go? And
Yeah.
during that process, you can identify there's some, nope, 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 don't want to do that. And typically the no's show up much easier than the yeses do, because the system is naturally driven by things that are uncomfortable. And so if you run into
Hmm.
something you don't like it, it's not a failure. It's a learning opportunity where you can go, okay, um, next time as I'm walking through my own virtual map of what it is that I want, I kind of went this way and I ran into something that I don't want in my life. And instead of trying to beat through that and conquer it, are there other paths available? Can I turn left? Can I turn right, metaphorically, and find other solutions? I don't know what those other solutions are, but you kind of know. Um, And the other thing I would like to say before we get too far on this is that as you are moving towards what it is that you want, there are going to be times where you need to take a break. And we always, I don't know if it's Western, if it's just the human condition these days, that when we move towards something, we want it now. And obviously, it's with technology and everything, we want now, faster.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't allow ourselves time to acclimate to this new thing that we're, as we're moving towards what it is that we want, as we start acquiring some of that and it starts feeling good, we want more and more and more. And we can kind of self-sabotage ourselves because we've gone maybe a little bit too far off the map. And then the
Hmm.
brain starts really freaking out because it goes, wow, we're so far off the map. I don't even know how we're going to survive out here because I don't have any safety markers. Um, we need to come back. We need
Hmm.
to come back like 10 blocks. And that's
Yeah.
sometimes that self sabotaging because we didn't allow the brain, the unconscious mind, the critter brain that's designed
Mhm.
to protect you, to kind of just acclimate and get used to it. Like, oh, let's just go check out this new
Yeah.
neighborhood and see what's going on.
It's a really great point. And to write in and fill in the map as you get there.
Yeah,
So then if you find yourself back in the same place, can you you can navigate that, so to speak, because it's there. I
right.
have a mentor who I really have learned a lot of cool stuff from, but he said something once that was really, really, really profound. He kind of has this spiral staircase that he had, like an actual model of it, and he uses it as a metaphor for
Hmm.
learning new skills and progressing in life towards our actualization. And he says it's incredibly important that as you go up this staircase to your destination, you don't skip steps. It's absolutely critically important that you don't hack your way through things, cheat, take an elevator up to the top. Because if you do, and in some ways, inevitably, you will find yourself moving back a little bit in life. If you've skipped these steps, you
Right.
will not know how to navigate the setbacks and the problems that will bring you
Hmm.
back to these places so you can be there and then move forward from them again.
Right.
So it's kind of in service of the slow way to progression and success to a certain degree, meaning you put one foot in front of the other over and over, and then you know how to navigate that trail like it's the back of your hand.
Right. Yeah.
And for me, that was really profound. Not that I've ever kind of been the hacker, how can I cheat the thing and get it as fast as possible kind of guy, but of course I have that desire inside of me, like,
Right. Right. Although
but
you
it's
do
really
know about
nice
future
to do
pacing.
future pacing,
Yeah,
you know.
it's kind of a hack. I mean, it's a mental hack in order to
Mhm.
be able to give some additional direction and focus for
Yeah,
the mind.
well, totally. I mean, conscious visualization has been used. I mean, I think they train Olympians with it for the
Yeah,
last 30 years or so. It's been around forever, getting your
yeah,
mind used to where it wants to be by visualizing it in a very rich sensory way,
hmm,
emotionally and all the other sensory inputs allows you to build out your map a bit without having been there. So yeah,
right.
I guess that's
I
a bit
guess,
of a
and
hack.
part of
I
it
never really
depends
thought of it
on.
that way. But,
Yeah, I was, as I, after I said that, I was
mhm.
like, oh, I guess it also depends on what your definition of a hack is.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe we need
And
to.
it's the energy you bring to it. If you're visualizing because you want to cheat the system, so to speak,
Right,
that's a form of resistance, and you're creating from a place that's not going to get you what you want. If you're doing it because you can build a sense of inevitability inside yourself, that's a completely different energy than just wanting to skip steps and not do the process or the hard
right,
work that is
right.
involved sometimes.
Yeah,
And then sometimes you do cheat the system and you put your attention on a Ferrari and it just pops out of nowhere in your backyard. And then you don't know what to do with it
right,
because it just like happens so quickly. And
right,
then it kind of has that lottery winner effect where whatever percentage it is end up, in a worse position 5 years down the road than
right.
they were before.
Yeah,
It's
and then
that bit
there's
of an effect.
yeah, and then there's the people that have won multiple lotteries over time. I
Mm.
know Michelle Masters, who does a program called Money Magic, which is focused on identifying blocks that you may have around money and trying to make money less, would be the right word. It has to do with the energy that money has, because a lot of people equate money to power or money
Mhm.
to success, happiness. Money equals, put in whatever your word is, could be
Whatever they're
corruption.
projecting onto it.
Yeah, and that
Yeah.
money is really,
Mm.
it's just a tool. It's it's no more or less important than a hammer is to a guy who uses a hammer every day on his job or something
Mhm.
like that. So is it benevolent? Money is supposed to be benevolent? No, it's not benevolent.
Something to that degree, neutral, something like
Yeah,
that.
it's one of those words I should know. Um, but she tells the story of this gal that she was working with in Australia who played the lottery
Hmm.
and bought a winning ticket. But not only did she buy a winning ticket, prior to the lottery closing, she lost her ticket, and she had specific numbers that she chose. So she went wherever and bought another ticket because she thought she had lost the original. And so
Huh.
when the lottery winning was announced, not only did she have the second ticket that she bought, she found her missing ticket. So she actually won twice at the same time. And it's like,
Really?
what are the chances of something like that happening? It's kind of like the Ferrari popping up in the backyard. Um,
Hmm.
Weird things do happen like that, and I think it's with that analogy. It's also nice to say when you're thinking about whatever it is that you want, if you have this feeling that what you want is too grand, too big, too
Hmm.
whatever, it's not real. I'm a realist, and so even though I want this, as a realist, you gotta go for what it
That,
is that you want, because that is going to
yeah.
drive you down. It's going to your mind is going to start identifying the choices that you need to make in order to move towards whatever it is that you want. And for the naysayers out there, I would say at the very least, at least you're moving towards something, right? Even if you don't achieve it for whatever reason you think that is legit,
Mhm.
is it better to be where you are now today, or is it better to be 50% closer to what it is that you want, and having more of that, if you will?
Totally. Those naysayers.
Those
Yeah,
naysayers.
I would say the idea of being a realist when it comes to your dreams, that's a tricky way of your system doing some funky stuff to you.
Right.
And it's really, 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 really hard to detect sometimes that that is going on. That's,
Especially if I know
um,
it's true. It's like, come on,
yeah.
yeah, come on. Let's be
Well,
reasonable. Let's be reasonable about it. This is not going to happen. Yes, it's what I
mhm.
want. Other people can have it, but let's be real about it. I'm not one of those
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. I think there's a place for being reasonable, not when it
Hmm.
comes to things you truly want, but let's just pick money because it's easy. You say, I want $100 million. Like,
Hmm.
awesome. All right, cool. You're like, well, but I'll be reasonable. I want $2 million. Like, okay, well, if you really want $100 million, like that's probably what you want.
All right.
But if you, and then you kind of check and you're like, I don't actually really want that much money. I wouldn't even know what to do with it.
Hmm.
Once I got there, I could figure it out. But
Right.
I don't. I think what I really want is just a sense of security that comes with having a lot of money. I
Right.
want the feeling inside myself, the confidence that it would bring to like go out and uh, find the right partner for me or be able to quit my job. It's like there's all these considerations that
Right.
having $100 million could bring you that it might be more important than actually having $100 million.
Hmm.
And knowing the difference between those things is critically important here.
Yeah.
And then the tricky part might come in where you might actually want to be that wildly successful for whatever reason. That's
Hmm.
fine. Um, but a tricky thing our systems do to us sometimes is make stuff that we truly want once we've kind of sussed out that right underlying the word truly. Once you kind of figure that out, if you get neutral feelings about things that you truly want, that's definitely a sign of the system of your mind starting to bring up those barriers in the way, the stuff to be cleared, the unconscious barriers, the beliefs
Right.
that are having pressure put on them by this new goal becoming present. The way our system seeks to keep us safe and seeks to keep mostly in equilibrium inside of the map that's been defined already, like you were talking about earlier. If we truly want something, we know that, and it doesn't kind of light us up emotionally, that's a really good indicator of where to start about some of this stuff.
Right.
But then again, getting to the truly part about all this is an endeavor in and of itself.
Right. And there is a 5-step process that you can go through to help
Five,
suss
five
out
easy steps.
5 easy steps. Yes. Number one, what is it that you would like?
Oh, let me write this down real quick. Okay.
Yeah.
What is it I would like? All right.
Yep.
Go on.
And once you have that, um,
Mhm.
and kind of what you were talking about earlier with like, oh yeah, I want $100 million, and as you think about it a little bit more, oh maybe I don't need 100 million, but 2 million. Oh well, even 2 million might. I really don't need that. I just need enough to live comfortably. Okay, well, what is that? 250,000. I think I could live comfortably. And I would say it's
Mhm.
okay to have steps, right? Okay, well, maybe it would be nice to have $100 million. But if you're only making 50K right now, you're like way off your map more than likely. You'd be walking out and it would just be this blank void that the
Yeah.
brain goes, I don't know how to deal with this. So being able to double your income to $100,000, live in that neighborhood for a little bit, and then maybe double that to 200K, and then half mil, and then a mil, and then kind of go, all right, hey, I kind of like this million thing. And because I've taken the time, I've gotten used to it. I can go ahead and it really, I think the idea of making $100 million is really tantalizing. Or, you know
Mhm.
what? Now that I'm here, I'm actually pretty comfortable just making a couple $1 million. This is okay.
Yeah.
So it's variable. And so part of that 5 step process is one, identifying what it is that you want. But really what's important is the why behind it, if you will. You know, if 100 million is what bubbled up to the surface, there's all kinds of reasoning, logic, illogic, all kinds of decisions. You know, if we could write it out as a
Right.
computer program, there's all these lines of code that happened before the decision was made that says, 100 million, that's what I want.
Yeah, and there's a lot of code bloat, as they would put it back then, where it's probably that comes from, as we talk about, family,
Mm-hmm.
culture, education, societal kind of things that are propped up in the
Right,
media and the movies you watch growing up. It's like all this stuff factors in, and you go, oh, I want this, and
right,
maybe you do, maybe you don't,
right. Yeah. And what
and
the big
it's
question, go ahead.
I was just going to reiterate just over and over. I want to hammer this point today. It's like this is critically important
Yeah,
as a starting place.
right. And it's
And
not
for some
something you have to
people,
figure
this
out
is,
right now.
yeah. And for some people, this might be wildly difficult. And for other people, it's like a breeze. So this is kind of, there's a huge gap in experience,
Yes.
just depending on the person and their psychology around this issue of
Right.
truly knowing what you want and defining that as a starting place.
Right. And I would
Yeah.
say if you fall into the camp, and it's totally normal. A lot of people fall into this camp of I'm not really sure what it is that I want.
Mhm.
Then maybe your first want is understanding what it is that you want.
Yeah,
Because if you're able
totally.
to, if you start shining the light around what it is that I want, and that's difficult, you're going to start identifying some of those invisible beliefs, some of those barriers, some of those
Mhm.
programs that your brain is running in order to protect you from whatever.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, be easy on yourself while you're doing this. There is no time frame that it needs to be done. These are things that often we have to chew on for a while, and chew on
Mhm.
metaphorically is just kind of let it percolate in the brain, and you'll get there. And I think that the big question is, that's 2 step in the 5 step process, is what will having this do for you? And this is
Yeah.
one of those questions that you want to write down, because it is a question you want to ask verbatim. What will having that do for you is really going to be important. So you kind of covered a couple of things earlier, Will. You know, let's take the $100 million. Oh, well, if I have $100 million, I can buy a house. Okay, well, what will
Mhm.
having that do for you? Well, it will provide safety and protection. Or it might be, oh, but it'll be a nice house so that I can actually, somebody will want to date me.
Yeah.
Okay. And what will having that? So these are, that question, what will having that do for you, is a way of kind of really getting to the meat. It's all those lines of code that we were talking about that
Mhm.
came up with the decision. I want $100 million. When you
Mhm.
ask what will having that do for you, what you're doing is you're digging down into the code, and we're getting to more of where the code originated, the source, if you will. What is that source feeling, that source
Yeah.
emotion that drives everything else? And
Yeah. The deep emotional drivers of this stuff.
yeah, and
It's
I
a
would say,
profound question.
yeah, more often than not, when and I don't know for you, but I know for me, when I work with people, more often than not, what they say they want, regardless of how confident they are about what they want, after we go through these 5 questions, especially question number 2 multiple times,
Mhm.
often what they want gets redefined.
Hmm.
Sometimes just a little bit, and sometimes it is completely different. And we're no longer talking about money, but it's actually, I just want to be loved. I want to find somebody who loves and cares for me as I am.
Yeah, and
So
that's why this process is so important because that happens all the time. Well, I don't actually want $100 million. I want a partner who loves me for who I am, right?
right. Yeah.
As one of so many examples of how this can play out and does play out.
Hmm.
Because if your mind thinks the only way you can ever have that is to have $100 million, that's a tough road to, and
Right.
an indirect road to what you truly want.
Correct. And it's
And
not going to
and
be
you
in
still want the
alignment with
money.
yourself.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes it's both, right? Maybe you
Yeah.
want a lot of money and you want the wonderful relationship. It's like, is
Right.
that so wrong? Of
Yeah.
course
But
not. But
if the
which one has more
relationship
juice to it?
Yeah, but if the relationship is attached to the money, then there's a distortion, or there isn't a clear
Yep.
understanding on the value of the relationship, if you will. It's been distorted that the only way I can have this
Mhm.
quality relationship that I want is with money.
Yep.
And I think you make a great point. Can you have both? Can you have the girl
Hmm.
and the money at the same time? Is that okay? If it's
Yeah.
not, then, well, no, obviously without the money, I can't have the girl. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Then, okay, you might want to look into that a little bit deeper and be able to identify it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, there's a whole
It,
side topic that we could go into on that, but I don't know if we need to.
and you make a great point that they're not related to each other, even though in someone's system, in this example, we're kind of playing with, they're intrinsically tied to each other,
Right.
but that's not reality. That's just what's going on inside of their minds at the moment. But money, relationship, they don't have to be linked to each other,
Right.
except in one fundamental way. They're both tied together by the person who has both of them or is working towards both of them.
Right.
So that's where this kind of the idea where it's not the goal, it's what the goal does to you
Mm-hmm.
is does come into play a bit, where the hero's journey or the growth, the growing pains we go through in our lives on the path to what we want showing up, whether that happens really quickly or takes a longer time, we become something different in the pursuit of what we truly want.
Right.
And that's so wildly important. And while you can have a loving relationship and not have any money, and you can have a lot of money and not have a loving relationship, they're not related in that way.
Right.
If you work towards and grow into something to obtain one, you've grown into something that has a more likelihood of having the other and other things as well too.
Right. Yeah.
Just because your identity has less objections to good things inside of itself, you have more of a reference inside of yourself of being able to create positive change in your life and having that come about and being able to, for lack of a better way of putting it, hold on to that positive stuff in your life, not
Mm-hmm.
get rid of it or destroy it or invalidate it in some way. So it's kind of, no one ever likes to hear it, including me, but that is what's going on here. It's
Right.
like at the end of the day, even working towards the goal, as you're saying, is like almost the point here, not even
Yeah.
having the goal. It's who you grow into in the pursuit of stuff you truly want that makes a huge difference over time in a compounding kind of way
Right.
inside
Yeah.
of ourselves.
Yeah. Nicely said.
And it's tricky because I think everyone values that highly too, and they also want a loving relationship and the $100 million and
Right.
all this stuff. So
Yeah.
it's like it's all true at the end of the day as well. A lot of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Very so. Very much so. So the idea with that, what will having that do for you, is a question that you get to ask multiple times. And
Mhm.
when you get to an answer that really starts feeling emotional for you in whatever ways that it does, that is letting you know that in that line of code, you're getting closer to the base where the source code started. And that's a great indicator because it's going to give you a true path to north for yourself when it becomes a emotional connection. because we are, as humans, we are driven by our emotions. We've done a great job. Many of us have done a great job of suppressing, neutralizing, normalizing, and kind of going, emotions aren't of interest. I'm going to do what's important for the family. I'm going to do what's important for society. I'm going to do what's important for quote unquote survival for myself, get a job that I don't like, and, whatever it is. But when it starts feeling emotional, that is a good sign.
Yeah, and it's kind of a funny phenomenon, misnomer, I don't know how to put it, but the idea that you can't feel something emotionally is really funny, because even the act of suppressing emotions is involving emotions in a different way.
Yeah.
We are emotional creatures, and I first heard this in sales, long ago in my life. It's like people buy emotionally and rationalize logically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just talking about how people make buying decisions. I think we could just generalize that to everything in human psychology.
Yeah.
We make all our decisions emotionally, and then we rationalize logically and somehow think we're rational creatures out here
Right.
doing rational things, which
Well,
sometimes we
if
are,
the
right?
rational
There's
brain says it is, then it must be so.
exactly.
Yeah.
It does have primacy like that. At
Yeah.
least it's good at asserting its primacy in that way.
All right. All right. Should we go into step 3?
I think we should. I'm still writing these down. This is
Oh, okay.
profound. I
Great,
appreciate
great,
you.
great.
Appreciate you doing this.
I'm trying to remember. I feel like I only have 4 of the 5, so I might have to lean on you
Oh,
for one of them. But
okay.
the next thing you want to do, it's a 3-part question, is, well, actually, I take it back. I figured it out. Is when would you like to have this? And actually, it is a 3-part because it's when, with whom, and where would you like to have this? So whatever it is there a specific place that you would like to have this? And place doesn't have to be geographic. It could be, oh, I want to have this in my heart, or it could be, but it might be, yeah, I want to move out of state, so I want to have it in Florida, as an example, or Texas, or wherever it might be. And then when would you like to have it, I think is super important, because if we don't have a time frame, it's kind of like the whole, oh, I want more money. Well, here, let me give you a penny. The brain needs some sort of marker that it can attach itself to, and it needs to be a reasonable marker. So if you're making 500,000 and you're still like, yep, I want $100 million and I would like it in 6 months, but you have no plans in place to do that. You don't have a business in line. You don't have this great invention that's going to rock the world and millions of people are going to want to give you all their money. If you don't have any systems in place, then okay, this may not be, that might be too big of a chunk. And how can you chunk it down, or how can you stretch it out? And even with that 100 million, if you feel like, oh, that's a real big chunk, you may want to chunk it down and go, okay, what is the next best step that I can take towards that ultimate goal? And then the third part of that 3-part question is, with whom would you like it? Is it just yourself? Are there other people involved? Friends, family, community at large? Who else is involved with that?
And they're just good things to help build out your future map, when you're visualizing and thinking about what you would like in the
Right.
future. That's getting closer and closer every minute that we speak, isn't it? The richer it is, those questions help ferret out. It's like, well, if it's pertinent, where would you like this? And if it's pertinent, does it involve anyone else who will be involved when you have what you would like? And when would you like this if it's pertinent, right? And that just helps orient your mind in time about it,
Right.
which is super useful.
Yeah. And then if you want bonus points for each one of those questions, where, when, with whom would you like it? For each one of those, as you answer each one of those, then ask question number 2 again. And what will having that do for me? It's just going to drive things. It's going to give you more clarity. It's going to drive things a little bit deeper and give you more clarity, which is super important.
Clarity is good,
Clarity
especially
is
when
always
we're
good.
working with lines of code, as you said, that
Yeah.
are stacked on top of each other a lot of the time.
Right. Yeah.
Very true.
And then after that, we want to ask an ecology question. And an ecology question is kind of just checking in to see if there's any of those invisible barriers, if there's anything going on. May it be other people, maybe it's family. How will it affect you personally when you have this?
Mhm.
So, there's a couple of different ways that you can ask it. Could be what important people will, or how will important people to you be affected when you have this? And so that's kind of an external reference, kind of
Mhm.
understanding, okay, how is this going to affect close friends, family? As an example, if you've got to move to the East Coast and you live on the West Coast, that's going to have an impact. And so there's going to be a part of your system that maybe doesn't want to leave because it's like, but hold it, I've got family here, I've got friends here. But what I really want is on the East Coast. And so we've got to understand, because it's hard to have clarity if we don't understand both sides of the story. If we don't understand what it is that we do want, and then what are the consequences, if you will, of having what you want. So that's
Yeah.
kind of an external reference. So another question you can ask is, what might you lose that you value when you have this good outcome? And
Yep.
it's not what are you going to lose? It's not an absolute. It's a what might you lose that you value when you have this good outcome. And these are things to gnaw on, because you can modify the plan if need be based on these responses.
Yeah, and it's a tricky one. That's where professionals are usually pretty helpful, but
Right.
sometimes people have a sense about, this isn't always true, but it almost is always true, that profound gain in people's lives usually comes with some form of loss. Or I mean, the
Right.
concept of, where you and I kick around, this term doesn't really get kicked around, but like ego death and that whole concept of like what part of you is, I don't think talking about it dying is all the most useful way to talk about it, but we'll just
Mm-hmm.
do it here for now. It's like, what part of you is going to die in your ego concept
Right.
that was stabilizing how it was, and gets out of the way for how it is now.
Yeah.
Now we would just say, what part of you kind of is revised and retired with honors, that
Mm-hmm.
is not, was doing a great job for you and keeping you alive, and has kind of outstayed its welcome, essentially.
Right. Yeah.
Doesn't have to be annihilated, it just has to be recognized, and kind of, and in its recognition and celebration, notice that it's probably not really, it's outstayed its welcome.
Right. Yeah. Because it's just not serving the version of you that you want to be.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's how stage names became so prevalent, because it seems like, stage names have been around for years and years and years, and kind of
Hmm.
wondering if somebody realized that, oh, maybe it was a manager of some sort, and he just said, if we give you a stage name and you're allowed to be this other person,
Hmm.
then you can do the things that you need to do in order to have this lifestyle. Being
Yeah.
in the public eye or singing in front of large crowds, whatever it may be. Be kind of interesting doing a little research on how stage names all got started.
Yeah, I've wondered about that too. The idea of like, I mean, so many famous artists and actors changed their name. So,
Mm-hmm.
excuse me.
Nice cover.
Oh, yeah. The technical
So,
cover up. Kill the mic real quick
kill the
when you
mic.
got a
Kill the mic.
cough. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, and then for some reason, the step number 5 is eluding me. Don't make me break out the
Oh, well, you
menu.
can do them in any order, but yeah. So
Yeah, that's
there's
true.
the other
That's this
question,
one.
kind of in the realm of, who would you like this with? When would you like it? Kind of thing. You just say, well, not once we decided, answer the question, what would you like? And kind of decide and gotten to the bottom more of, well, do you truly want this, by digging around with, well, when you have what you want, what will having that do for you?
Hmm.
And you kind of suss that out a bit. You say, well, how will you know when you have it?
Ah, thank you.
That would be the,
Yeah.
and that just kind of orients the mind really directly into, I don't know, when I have $100 million, I'll just see it in my bank account,
Right.
or I'll have unmarked bills falling out of my, you know, out of my closet. It's
Right.
what it could, even that one that seems so straightforward, right? If you
Right.
really start thinking about it, could be answered a million different ways.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's not how I would answer it if I'm helping a client with this thing they're working on. It only matters how they would answer it.
Right.
So instead
Right.
of me pretending I have any idea what's going on inside their head, you just
Yeah.
ask them, how will you know when you have it?
Right. And I think
What are the real world and emotional indicators that you will let you know that what you wanted has arrived?
right. Yeah. And if it's like a when you can actually put an absolute to it, like money as an example, it's a little bit easier. Although it is good to
Mhm.
identify, is that money in a an account? Is that net wealth? Is that, based on how much property you own? So yeah, getting
Mhm.
clarity around that. That question asks some great things. However, if what you want is a little bit maybe more emotional based, like, oh, I want a loving relationship. Okay.
Mhm.
Uh, great way of kind of shorting out somebody's brain is ask them, how will you know when you have that? Uh, huh. That's interesting. Never been asked that
But-
question. I just know when I
mhm.
know. Okay. But there's a part of your brain that knows when you know. So if your brain knows when it
Mhm.
knows, what is that know that you know?
It's funny. That is a good way to short people's brains out usefully
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And that could be answered a million different ways. Well, how will you know when you have a loving relationship? Uh,
Right.
I don't know. They text me back quickly. They bring
Right.
me flowers every day. The indicators are endless. It just depends on the person.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, if you want to, if you're, for those watching, if you're in a relationship and somebody says, hey, I wish you would do something differently, and it's more kind of emotionally based, ask them, how will you know when I'm behaving in such a way? And it'll help them give you more clarity so you know what it is that maybe you need to focus on in that relationship, if it's assuming it's healthy for you to do so.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Assuming. And if they say, I shouldn't have to tell you, you should just know, then that's
right.
important information too.
Right. Yeah. So, or if it's something like, oh, we're going to go to the bar and I want you to beat somebody up for me. It's like, okay. So, yeah, there's all kinds of stuff out there. That probably wasn't the best analogy, but I've had better.
That would be an interesting one. I
Well,
would not have thought of that.
I'm kind of thinking of the,
Like it would.
the, and maybe it's just something I've seen on TV or in shows where it's the really attractive girl, and in order to feel secure in the relationship, she will make eyes with somebody at a bar just so
Mhm.
that they'll approach her, and then the boyfriend has to, or whoever it is, has to defend her.
Ah,
So it's like she'll create situations where she has to be defended. And that is like, again, it's very specific. I don't know how honest or real it is, if it's just something I've noticed on TV shows.
mhm. Well, I mean, I think a lot of relationships have some form of like, instead of just having difficult conversations about important things, they'll
Right.
facilitate, you know, devious, passive aggressive ways of like, prove to me that, this thing is real. And it's,
Right.
yeah, I can't. I know the idea of the example you're pointing out. I'm sure I can't. I'm like, yeah, I think I've seen that a million times in
Right.
movies and media over the years. I can't think of one specific, but
Yeah. Well, or you know
it's
what I
not so
see now?
healthy. I think hopefully we're moving past that
We're
sort of
not.
thing.
We're not. What I've seen seems to be trending on TikTok, and I'm not on TikTok, but they show up on my YouTube shorts,
Uh huh.
is the guy will play a voice, and it's a voice of a girl, and his girlfriend or significant other is in the room, and he'll play it out loud, and it'll be like, "Hey, honey, are you alone, or is your girl still there?"
Oh,
And
Jesus.
he'll play it out loud while he's recording. So, you know, he might be like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm just looking at my phone, but I'm actually recording my partner."
Hmm.
And so you play that, and then you record it, and then you got to show people, and it's like, so
It's a
anyway,
pretty dark trick.
people are doing all kinds of crazy stuff these days. So,
I
but
didn't know that one. That's not so awesome for your partner.
no.
Although I'm sure functionally it's hilarious to watch. I saw something like that that I really liked a while ago. They called it the influencer challenge. I don't know if you saw that at all, but it was the same
Maybe I
idea.
don't.
You're secretly recording your partner's reaction to you. And what you do is you just start pretending like you're an influencer with an audience and you talk about like this product you like or what you put in your hair this
Right.
morning or something, and they're just like, what are you doing? Like, you're not an influence. And that would be, a less dark version of what you're
Right.
talking about.
Yes.
That I
Yes.
love watching those videos because they're really funny.
That is too funny. I could see, I think it would be fun to do like a Kim Kardashian kind of based one, because it would be just so far off my map, you
Hmm.
know, just people trying weird stuff. And it's kind of cool because you get to play in different realms in that way, right? You get to kind of pretend, oh, it's like, oh, okay, I wonder what it would be like to be an influencer. Well, here's an opportunity or an excuse to try and test it out,
Yeah.
and maybe see if, oh, that really wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. I thought it would be really hard to talk about how I shampoo my hair today, but it really wasn't that difficult. We might have some new influencers in training
I
doing
think
those
so.
videos. Who knows? Who knows? So
How did you shampoo your hair today? It looks nice.
actually, I
Although it's
didn't.
not
That
in a
was
mohawk
that
because I've
was that
addressed
was
already.
that is the key with this wiry hair that I have. The secret, folks, is
Yeah.
don't wash your hair. Let the oils get in there and just bind it all together.
Hmm.
Yeah, nothing is worse than having, like, I need to show up and look presentable. You know, when my hair is fully grown out, it's not fully grown out yet, and
Hmm.
knowing that I should wash it the day before because it's been like 3 or 4 days, and it's like, yeah, no, not gonna wash it because I know it's just gonna go
Hmm.
boom if I don't. So
These
there
are
you
the
go.
things people need to know.
I know. Hey, good thing
You're an
I'm here as an
influencer
influencer
in bunny. Yeah.
to let people know that. Yeah. So I think, should we wrap it
Just
up?
make sure that's truly what you want. You can have it if
No.
that's what you want.
You know what I want? I do want to be rich, richer than I am now. And I'm
Hmm.
talking about financial wealth because I think emotionally I'm getting richer every day, especially having these conversations. I enjoy. It's one of the reasons why we did the shows, because we enjoy talking about this stuff. Um,
It's good for us personally, which was where
yes,
we started with the whole concept of this show.
correct.
Yeah.
Yes. And as you, the audience, gains stuff out of this, that's like bonus. But the reality is, we're very selfish. We just wanted to talk to each other in a constructive, semi focused way. But
Yeah.
with wealth, I do not want fame. That is definitely, I do not want to be seen in public. I want to be able to go to the grocery store and not have to worry about anything. I want to be able to go out to dinner, not have to worry about things, get on a plane. I don't, people like a Justin Bieber or a Beyonce, Jay-Z. I like, I have, that is so far off my map. It's like in outer space
Yeah.
where you're going to die because there's no oxygen. Just to me, it seems
Yeah.
suffocating. So I'm like, rich, yes,
So,
money, we'll take it. Fame, hell no, don't want it. So if we get wildly successful, just, you're going
mhm.
to have to find a new partner. Just letting you know
That's tough, man. That's tough. Yeah. Well,
now.
it seems like, you know, maybe you just don't want to be famous enough to where someone would say your name the way you say Jay-Z's name, right? With some unique
Sure,
emphasis or
sure.
something. Maybe we can leave it at that.
We leave it at that. Yeah. A little notoriety is fine. I just, yeah. But being harassed in public, no thank you. Um, and not that you would be harassed in public, but I imagine it would increase the opportunities to do so.
It's really interesting. I was having this similar conversation with a friend like 2 or 3 days ago, and I was saying similar things. And he actually, his 2 cents was, is your, and this is a total side note to what we've been talking about today, but it is interesting because I think
Hmm.
a lot of people have that idea. It's like, I'd like to be rich, but I don't want to be famous. I don't want to have bad things come from this positive thing, is another
Right.
way to say it. You could look at this fame as recognition of excellence in some sort of endeavor you can have, and that kind of moves some stuff around for me a bit,
Right.
because yeah, it's well known that being famous and being recognized can come with its own drawbacks too,
Hmm.
but it also means that you've done something of value. I
Right.
mean, I think for people like you and I and people who would listen to a show like this, it would mean you've done something of value. It didn't mean
Right.
you were famous for being famous or for some stupid reason. But
Right. Right. Yeah, and I think within
yeah,
the context of the right community, there's no issues with visibility, but just like in general with the public, no thanks. No thanks.
fair enough.
So, yeah.
Fair enough.
But as far as getting what you want,
And that's you defining success for yourself. There you
yes,
go.
yes, yes. You've helped just add, just kind of going down that path, asking some different questions, helps define things and gives clarity to the unconscious, subconscious mind to, again, what doors do we want to open and what doors do we want to leave closed so
Mhm.
that we notice what's important to you. Because ultimately, you are, what is it, the higher, I'm trying to think, like if you do a
You're the senior
senior
consciousness of all
consciousness,
of
thank
this.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All of the different parts of you that make your meat suit move, you are the senior consciousness. You are the supreme leader. They are doing everything in your for your good, for your effort, there's another word I can't think of it, but they're doing it all for you.
Yep.
And while some
Well, and
things,
that's
go ahead.
I would say, I mean, the idea, I mean, this is kind of the broadest way I think about what you and I talk about and what we do with clients, and what's important about how people build the relationship with themselves is to have this experience, a true experience of their conscious thinking mind, be of, we call it the senior consciousness, but that's kind
Hmm.
of a, nerdy niche kind of way of talking about it. But just what people would call their conscious experience of themselves in life, having that be the true command center where more of your choices come about than don't come
Right.
about if you want them in your life. Instead of the idea being you make a conscious choice and then nothing ever happens because it runs into too many internal barriers in the system to
Right.
actually become real, whether you believe and you manifest things in your life or you believe that your perceptions in your mind bring about what becomes real in your world over time. It doesn't matter how you think about it. I think it works either way.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but that's kind of the deal. The more you revise the internal barriers to having positive stuff come about in your life, like the more you do that, the better it gets. And kind of in a growing compound automatic
Hmm.
kind of way, if
Right.
done correctly and
Yeah.
artfully.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like you choose a goal and you work towards it, and it helps you achieve other goals in the future. And
Right.
then you have this experience of being the senior consciousness and the chooser of your life. And
Right.
that's really the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
And that might take a lifetime or it might happen a little bit quicker. But just having the sense that your conscious choices come about more often than not, I think is one, really beautiful.
Hmm.
Two, probably kind of the point of what we're doing here, if I had to guess about it. And then three, it's like, how would you want to live any other way? Probably not.
Probably not. Yeah. Once you've taken the red pill and you know. So,
Exactly.
yeah. All right. So as far as identifying what is it that you would like is, it's really important to go kind of deep on it. So, those 5 steps. First, ask yourself, what is it that I would like? What is it that I want? And get clear on that by digging deeper, by asking yourself, well, what will having this do for me?
Hmm.
And once you've gone in and dug a little deeper, ask some clarifying questions like, okay, well, when do I want this? Where do I want it? With whom do I want it? And even within those, feel free to dig a little bit deeper with, well, what will having that do for me? That other really important clarifying question, how will I know when I have it?
Yeah.
Is super important, because there's a lot of times maybe things feel a little abstract, and it's like, oh, well, if I can't properly define how I'll know when I have it, then how do I know that what I want is what I want if I can't really
Yeah.
define what it is? So define it in the best ways that you can. And again, these are not answers that you have to come up with immediately. Often you'll wake up in the middle of the
Hmm.
night, or you'll be taking a shower, and it's like, it just came to me. Dun, dun, dun. Here's the
Yeah.
missing piece. So
Yeah.
allow yourself,
Totally.
give yourself that time. And then really important through all of this is that ecology question, checking in with, okay, well, what are some of the side effects, or what are some of the negative things that might happen when I have what I want? Those that are important to me, how might they be affected? And
Hmm.
then, so that's kind of externally referenced, and then internally referenced, when I have what I want, what might I lose that I value when I have this good thing?
Yeah.
And that's super, super important.
It is, and that's again, can be a tricky one, or it can be kind of if you just notice the emotional tone that comes with answering that question,
Right.
might be really useful too.
Yeah.
And I just want to stress that point you made earlier, because it's really important. This stuff may not come right away. It
Right.
might come in the shower, or while you're cooking, or while you're on a walk or exercising, like when you're kind of, our subconscious mind has that weird way of doing it where we kind of point our attention away from the thing we've been ruthlessly focusing
Mm-hmm.
on, then like the answer shows up. And
Right.
sometimes that happens when you're distracted in something else.
Right.
So
And
you
in
give it
that
some time. That's
yeah, and
part of the process.
in that same vein, I would also say, if you get a response that doesn't seem logical, it seems like, well, that's really weird. Wonder why that's there. Those are typically very, very important,
Yeah.
because they're not based on logic; they're based on emotion. So when you get those ones where if your head turns sideways, then it's probably a good indication that you've hit something that's really important in your system.
Totally.
Yeah.
Very true.
All right, very cool. Other than that, I would say, follow us, be sure to like us, subscribe, all that type of fun stuff. We will be focusing more on success in general, kind of looking at success at different angles, because
Yeah.
everybody has different definitions and importance of what success is. And success itself is a very broad topic that it's too broad to just talk about it and one
Oh
fell
yeah.
swoop. Just too
There's
much.
there's a million components to it, as
Yeah.
we were sussing out when we were planning this, but I
Right.
think we decided to start here because this is always going to be fundamentally important when
Yep.
you're talking about success. How is it defined for you? I think that's the
Yeah.
important starting
Yeah.
place.
For sure.
Always.
Yep. If you got questions, comments, thoughts, feelings, did something right, we did something wrong, let us know down below. Other than that, next week, 10:15 on Tuesday. Sound good, Will?
Sounds good to me. We'll be
All
here.
right. Cool. All right,
Be
everybody.
doing it.
Take care.
All right.